So I want to welcome everybody to Super Smart Women, our podcast. I'm Karen Medina, your host, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you've come back for more, then I'm really glad you're here. Today, I am talking with Tamara Payne. Tamara and I have known each other for quite some time. I think I figured out it's been about 7 years.
Okay.
And I started looking at her LinkedIn profile and what all am I going to say about Tamara? Because you've had so much experience. But I think one of the things that means the most to me is that you own Ensemble Coworking, which is where we're actually filming and recording this. And that's how we got to know each other. But you've been a city councilman, you own Pain-Free Consulting, you're also now the chief
ecosystem officer.
It's still CEO.
Yes,
still works.
Still CEO.
For Sparkyard, and that's exciting. So rather than me trying to give your bio and background, tell me and tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Well, some would say I'm a serial entrepreneur, which is probably the truth. And I was raised by an entrepreneurial woman, and my dad kind of side hustled with my mom too. So I think it was just always in my blood. Although my background and my schooling is in radio, television, communications.
Okay.
And so I did that for a little bit, went into marketing, and then launched my own business. My first business about 24 years ago, I think now. I had some other little ones, but my first business.
So when you were 5.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. I did it when my girls were just 6 months old, and I think, what was I thinking, I have twins. What was I thinking? But so fast forward through all those years and many iterations of that business, people were always at the forefront of everything I did and connecting people. And that's what led me to opening Ensemble, because I worked from home by myself for a long time. I got in an office, almost bankrupted myself because the expenses were so high. And when I got introduced to co-working, it was a few years later that I was like, okay, this is like networking on steroids, and this is community, and this is what I would like to build for other entrepreneurs. So Ensemble's been open 8.5 years now, and I started with a wonderful partner. She and I split very amicably in 2019, still very good friends. She's off doing her thing. This really was my dream, and she helped me launch it. So I'm really grateful for that. My other business had many iterations, and now I just do the business and strategy consulting. So helping others to create strategy to grow their business, revenue models, how to master all the elements of running a business, which most entrepreneurs are not very good at. And yes, at one point I became a city councilwoman. I, again, think, what was I thinking? I've been off council now for a little over a year. So I had one term, 3 years, which was fine for me. And along the way, I also was an adjunct professor for Tarrant County College, teaching and sitting on multiple boards and all that good stuff along the way. You can see that it's all about people and loving on people and taking and caring for people and helping to share my wisdom with them.
I think one of the first things I noticed here at Ensemble, the titles even spoke to that. I think you're a chief connector here at Ensemble. Yeah. So it's been about networking, connecting, and that was one of the things that drew me in initially to have space here. So everything you've done has always been with a servant leader heart and a servant leader mindset. So, but servant leader has become a buzzword. It's overused. It's cliche. Yeah. And so tell our audience, let's talk about, what does servant leader mean to you?
Yeah, to me, I know the whole dictionary terminology for it, but I just feel like what it truly means to me is leading from behind.
Okay.
Is showing that you don't have to be always in the front, but there are times when you need to be, and that's when I'm going to be, and that's a different subject. But it's about seeing the greatness in others and helping to elevate that and bring that out in them. But what I realize is that I can't do more of that until I put myself out there more as well. And so what I have done a lot of is really, truly leading from the back and saying, you go, you step up, you shine, but I have to shine enough to be able to get people up there.
As an example.
Oh, you want an example?
No, I'm saying you have to shine as the example.
Absolutely.
Because some of those young leaders that you're pushing to the forefront and telling, go do this, they're but how?
Yeah.
But how? And so when you actually step into that position and do that, they're like, that's how. Yeah. That's how I'm going to do it.
Right. And also sometimes the how is quite elusive sometimes. Yes. Even for me, for all of us, sometimes we have big dreams and we think about these things, but it's like, how are we actually going to make that happen? Sometimes you need not worry too much about the from here to there, that God will reveal those steps along the way. And sometimes you just
it's just from here to here.
And it's a leap of faith, or it's little tiny steps, one after another. So it's really about serving from behind. But I would say it's truly about bringing out the best and the most that are in people. I have this way of seeing people and connecting to them and seeing the greatness that exists within them that oftentimes they don't see in themselves.
Talk to me about an example, someone that you've worked with along the way in leading them, and that kind of those success stories that really prick your heart and kind of give you that mama pride.
Yeah, I know. Well, they call me Mama Tia around here for a reason. There's so many of them, but I can remember early on, we had a lot more baby entrepreneurs then, and I mean young people in their 20s, and they were a little lost in life in general, and then about running a business. And early on in doing this, I also got really attached, and I got attached to the outcomes that they had. And boy, that was a big lesson to learn as well, because I want people to move through here and grow into their next stage. And if it's not here, it's not here. But I had a hard time with it the first few times that they spread their wings and left. I was like, but why?
Like the nest.
But then I realized, wait a minute, isn't that what they're supposed to be doing?
That's what I taught them to do.
Isn't that what they're supposed to be doing? So I probably had two young guys, Chris and Robbie, you know them, right? And they were just precious to me. And I don't have sons, so I just loved these guys to death. And they both came in as very newbies into business, and smart guys, but not knowing how to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And they soaked up information like a sponge, right? And each of them kind of started to succeed in their own ways and spread their wings. And they are really, truly the first ones that left when I had that heartbreak moment of but you can't. Yeah. And it was huge for me. And I got upset. I first got angry when they told me they were leaving. And I was like, and I had to go check myself. Oh, and boy, did I check myself. I checked myself big time. And I was like, okay, what is happening here? This cannot happen again, And so that is also a servant leader thing where you do, love so much. I love so deeply. And I want to see people succeed so deeply that I can over-attach to them and outcomes. So 8.5 years later, I have learned, right, that no matter what happens, they always come back. Those two, perfect examples. Every time they're in town, because neither one lives here now. One lives out of state, and one lives down in San Antonio. Every time they're here, they come see me. Every single time. And so they always come back. But it's really just the greatest thing to let them fly and do their thing. And I feel like I've deposited something in people's lives and in their heart that they can then take out and spread and share with others.
So who in your earlier life was a mentor or a leader that you kind of maybe modeled some of your choices after?
Okay, so I'll be honest with you, I didn't have a lot of mentors. And I think that's because I didn't know how to ask. Let me rephrase that. I didn't know how to ask, but as I look back now, I do think about, I was in Mary Kay Cosmetics when I was in my 20s, early 20s, and I feel like a lot of what I learned in Mary Kay is what got me to where I am as a businesswoman today. But I think about Sharon Hanoka. She was my director. And in my 20s, I was a handful. You can only imagine. I thought I knew everything, and I'm sure I was unit leader. I was always winning all these awards because I was a high achiever. But I would always be but I think we could do things differently around here. Boy, did she have patience with me. And now that she's much older, I'm much older, and I think back to the women that I have mentored, and I've had a few. We all have the ones that are very much like who we were at that age, and you go, Oh, thanks for that lesson, God. I appreciate that. And so I think that Sharon and a lot of the women in Mary Kay who loved on me during a time when I needed it were really hugely instrumental in shaping who I am as a person and a leader now.
Let's talk about advice for someone who is looking to be a servant leader or a mentor for someone else. How would you advise somebody to kind of get started in doing that?
Oh, wow. One is, I think, being observant of the people that are in and around you, right? I think God places people around us that need us. And they don't always have to be younger, by the way. They can be counterparts and peers. So being aware of that when there's an inkling of information that you're like, oh, I know, I've been there. I know how to kind of work through that. And prepare yourself and your heart for like, hey, I realize that this is a give thing, but you will also get so much when you mentor. So, I mean, sometimes I get so much more out of it than they get from me, I think. And they're like, oh my God, but you don't understand. I'm like, no, I do. Yeah, I absolutely do. Because I learn from everybody I mentor from. Because they all have information I don't have. And especially the young ones. I'm always learning things that I'm like, how does your brain think like that? Yeah. So if you're looking to mentor, it's like be open to what's around you. Now, there are some formal mentoring programs you can be a part of, whether it's through Junior Achievement, Girl Scouts. I'm trying to think of anything local here, but there's a lot of national ones. Find your local co-working community. Find entrepreneurial centers in your area. Colleges, too. And then high schools who have entrepreneurial academies also love mentors. And they don't know where to find them, quite frankly. That's the thing. You have to kind of raise your hand and say, put me in. I'm willing to help out. And it's not rocket science. It's really just heart-centered. Like I said, the program with EEVF, as far as how I did the mentoring, it was on my own, which I created a little bit of a template and then they used it with the other mentors. Yeah. But it truly, all I had to follow was we needed to meet at least twice a month. It's a whole year program. We had some checkpoints that they had to do. But most of the programs are really just about listening, asking great questions.
And some of them have those deliverables, like you're talking about. But some of them, it is truly creating a relationship where you're listening. Yeah. Let's talk about building trust in relationships. Because I think, here again, it all comes down to relationships. How does someone build trust in a relationship that they're building as a mentor or in that leadership role? Mm-hmm. What does that look like?
It's interesting. It's an interesting question because it's not something that I have to think about anymore. It's so innate to who I am. And it's really interesting to me, and this is a little pat on the back, but it's also God-given talent, that like I can meet people and within 30 minutes, they're talking about themselves and they're like, wow, you just have this way of bringing out who I am. And I think that if I were to say the trust comes from curiosity, being constantly curious about other human beings. Who are they? What makes them tick? How can I get beyond your name and your name tag and your title and get into your heart and who you are? And it's not always easy. A lot of, with introverted people, it's hard. But there are some that it's just a thing where tell me more about yourself. How did you get into that? Oh, wow, that's interesting. Tell me about your family. What did you do before? Like, what's been your past? So what are you struggling with? All of those things, right? If you're curious about human beings, it's how we learn from them, number one. But it's also then how you build that trust. Because people love to talk about themselves without being braggadocious. I'm not saying that. But we spend so much time talking about ourselves that people rarely ask us about ourselves. And when you ask them about themselves, it breaks their walls down and it sees that you're genuinely interested. So it can't be a facade. It can't be fake. It can't, it's got to be genuine and real. And I think just finding out about people and little nuggets it's so interesting to me. So yeah, trust is at the base of everything. And then of course it's what you do with that information. Therein lies probably the biggest leap to trust is what happens afterwards, right? If I sit and reveal things to you that are personal to me, and then they're going to come back around to me through somebody else, or I don't feel like I could trust you with that when I'm telling you, then I'm not going to tell it to you. And you want to be able to be as vulnerable as you can with somebody and know that that vulnerability is received and protected. Right?
Yeah.
That's so important to me, that protect. For me, so I think that it all comes from, this is what I desire in my relationships, is that if I am vulnerable and if I'm telling you all about myself, which inevitably with me comes with a lot of the stuff, because I just tell everything. I just say everything. Well, let me tell you about my deep, dark secrets, right? Because I'm kind of an open book, but it does come back and bite me sometimes, right? And so I've become more guarded in regards to that as I've gotten older.
And I think there are two types of people. Those that are open books that close a little bit more as they get older, and then those that are closed books that maybe open up a little bit more.
Right.
And I don't know if that's an introvert-extrovert thing. I'm not a psychologist. I don't want to break that down.
Right.
But I like a couple of the observations that you made in when you're talking with someone, asking questions. And I heard the question, tell me more, tell me about this. They're not yes/no questions.
Yeah.
They're open-ended questions. And when you ask those open-ended questions, they reveal other pieces of information. And then that's an interesting connection. Tell me about that. And so when you're taking things that you get out of a conversation, a few questions, and then you're taking it a little further and you're digging a little deeper. I found myself in some of those conversations at a networking event going, this is probably starting to sound like an interview, but I'm just really fascinated.
Correct.
With your story.
I get fascinated by people. And so we would probably say the terminology for that is active listening, right?
Right.
But I really look at it from a constantly
curiosity.
So you have to be listening, but you really have to be curious.
You're asking in that desire to know. Right. Curiosity isn't interviewing. It's that true heartfelt desire to know more about something.
And it can make some people uncomfortable because it's so genuine that most people are disingenuous when they're having these conversations. So the other thing with that actively listening is to not be ready with I've been through that. It's not, let me interject all about me. It's right. It's about, you have to continue down that path. That's the trust factor as well. And that's in business or in personal life.
Because they're thinking, why is she asking me this question?
Right.
And if it's leading to another question and she's interested in me, then I want to talk. But if it's just an opening for somebody to go, oh, yeah, me too, let me tell you about.
Right.
Then it's like.
Or let me tell you how I can sell you.
Yes. How can I sell you something?
Right.
Then the person you're talking with starts to shut down because it feels disingenuous. That trust isn't being built. So I think those are great nuggets for.
I have in one of my talks where I talk about the power of connection. I talk about how this process makes you the most interesting person in the room, the person who's asking all the questions, because people are like, they don't even realize you're not talking about yourself, but they're so engaged with you. Because you're engaged with them.
She's so much fun to talk to.
Right, because you're engaged with them. And you become the most interesting person in the room without really ever saying a whole lot about yourself. But isn't that kind of cool?
That is.
Isn't that powerful?
And I think that's one of the first things that I noticed about you in a networking event that I think you had hosted. It was and we'd been around each other, but it was one of the women's events. And you do a phenomenal job of putting different women at the table that can kind of lead the conversation with that same type of heart. And you might have talked for, 5 minutes in this 2-hour event, but at the end of it was like, that's Tamara's event. That, she put that together. Your name rang with it because you did such a great job of orchestrating those connections. And I think that's what's important for somebody here thinks like, what does it take to be a good leader? A servant leader, a good leader, is someone that listens, someone that's innately curious about the people that they're leading and that they're talking to. And those are several other things said, but those were 2 really, really great pieces of advice. Let's talk about some of the best advice you've ever received.
It's so hard because I think that you get the best advice at different times of your life.
Yes.
Do you not think that, like, if you asked me that question in my 30s, it'd be different than it was in my 40s. And of course, it's very different than it is now in my 50s. Best advice. I would say, so where I'm sitting right now, because I'm in this big change of life, is just about being still and listening to God. And to not be so uber driven type A to try to force everything to happen. And that's in business and in personal life. So this is applicable to both sides, but it's about just being still. And sometimes you have to wait.
And I'm not very good at being still. We have a very similar personality type.
Patience is not in my name.
And I'm very careful about praying for patience because that's when you get the opportunities to be patient, right? But I think that's going to be true of a lot of women that would listen to this podcast. They are driven women. They are entrepreneurs. They are mothers. They are leaders. The list could go on.
Right.
And so
they're movers and shakers, and they're doing things.
And when you're a mover and shaker, the word still does not fit in with move and shake. It's like, how can you move and shake and be still?
Yeah.
So
that keeps coming up for me. Like, it's been months now. Comes up. It's like totally God is talking to me for sure, because it's showing up in my feed, and then some people that I've been following and listening to, and it's true. It's true, because I am in this transition where I really just want to force what's next.
Like, I know what to do next.
Well, the thing is, I'm not sure I know what to do
but
next.
I'm just going to do something because I'm not comfortable not doing something.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
I was doing yoga yesterday, and it was like 6 a.m, and this is such a great story. I was thinking about this. I was like, I don't know who I'm going to tell this to at some point, but I'm like, why is a busy-minded, fast-moving brain of an entrepreneur sitting on the floor trying to do yoga by myself, by the way, following a video, and at some point she says, now I'm sure that you're just ready for this to speed up and get to the next point.
Yes.
And so I'm on day one of a day of 30 days of yoga. So it's a very slow moving in the beginning. And so I was like, yes, please, can we get on to the next? And then I
have warrior just about as long as I want.
And then I said, no. You're here to be still. You have to do this. Like, why did I commit to 30 days of yoga? I'm like, what am I, cray-cray? Like, I don't know. Am I going to make it through this?
I can't wait to talk to you in 30 days. Because I want to hear that success of that, because that's going to motivate me to start my 30 days of yoga.
But I think, honestly, this popped up solely because it fits in the whole be still thing. So I think no matter what age you are, what phase or stage you're in business, in life, we all have to learn to be still and listen and wait and dream.
And I wish someone had told me that. Maybe I wish I had told myself that when I was 13.
Yeah.
And I know that that's something you would probably go back and tell yourself. Would you tell yourself anything else?
Yes.
Your 13-year-old self. I've just put you in the time machine, and you've traveled back, and you're looking at 13-year-old Tamara. What are you telling her?
I would tell her she's perfect just the way she is. I would say you need to laugh as loud as you can be. You need to wear all the crazy colored clothing. You need to be uber sensitive for a while. You need to cry. You need to not be afraid to be yourself, because you're pretty freaking amazing just the way you are.
I think I just got tears, just hearing you say that, because I don't know a single young lady that I wouldn't say that to.
Right.
That I think everyone struggles with self-confidence. I would encourage any young woman to be you, be authentic, be proud, and don't let anyone else.
May I layer onto that? Because I've been doing a lot of research on this. And I've been looking at the difference between self-confidence and worth. Funny thing is that I have the confidence. I've had the confidence. I keep doing all these things. I have the confidence. It's the worth. Do I feel that I'm worthy of being who I am, just the way I am, without changing and conforming to someone else's vision of me or the world's vision of me? And do I feel worthy of love, of success, of quality friendships, of the money that I want to make and that I deserve to make because of who I am and my experience? I can't quote this to you, but I would go look at the difference in self-confidence and worth. And I think that really more women struggle with the worthiness side of it. Because when I listen to you talk about this woman here, that sounds like worthy to me.
Oh, it absolutely is.
And
you hit the nail on the head.
And so that has been, again, this journey of mine over these last couple of years, and then really over the last year, about valuing myself and my worth. And I don't just mean dollar-wise. I mean in connections, in the quality of people that I put around me, into the junk I listen to, the people I listen to that I shouldn't be listening to, and then, of course, removing all the crap from your past, which doesn't always go away, but
it has an incredible ability to be this weighty baggage that we carry around to speak to, you're not worthy.
Yeah.
Let's shed some of that.
I'm shedding. I'm in a shedding phase, by the way.
Right.
That's what I keep saying. I'm shedding things.
We're going to shed a lot of things from between the yoga and the
life,
self-talk, and love.
Yes,
I love it. I love it. Okay, so let's talk about resources.
Okay.
Because we don't get to our age, we're still really young, but we don't get here.
I'm just getting started.
Right? Without having, books and podcasts and people that we follow on LinkedIn. So who are what is something you've read or someone that you follow that you would advise other people to take about?
I will tell you that the book As a Man Thinketh by James Allen has always been a core book for me. It's very simple and basic. I give it as graduation gifts all the time because it always has to do with thinking and how you think.
It's a mindset book?
It's based on the Bible.
Okay.
I'd be lying if I told you which. Oh, no, I feel bad not having that. But it's As a Man Thinketh, so shall he become. And it's all about our thoughts. Well, our thoughts lead to our actions, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's clearly something, and I started doing this 25 years ago. So it's clearly something that I've been working on for 25 years.
Well, I'll definitely put a link to the book in the description.
It's a great little book. You got to order it online. You can't buy it in a bookstore anymore. As a Man Thinketh. So I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown, Mel Robbins. So I recently came across a new guy that I've been following. His name's Ken Jocelyn.
Okay.
And his company is Growth Stack Drive. So GSD. And the podcast is As the Leader Grows. And it's very faith-based. So if you're, but he does talk about a lot of stuff, just entrepreneurial. And what I really like about it is that he talks about mindset, right? So as a business consultant and coach, I'm not the woo-woo person. You know that. I always say that I'm not the woo-woo person. So I'm not dealing with your mindset issues, right? Although inevitably it comes into play at some point when people are stuck as to why are you stuck at the same level? The mindset part of it comes into play. And I'm very matter of fact about it. And I always say, I'm like, this is why you might need another person for this part of it. You want me to help you break down the revenue model and break down financials. I'm like, so for me, I've been really listening to his stuff, following him on Instagram. And that's made, again, for where I'm at in my life right now, a massive difference for me.
Okay.
It's very point blank. He does a lot of interviewing with some very big dogs, Grant Cardone, other people that we all know of, and breaks it down into the faith side of it, which is become very poignant and important to me. So that's been huge for me.
Well, I'll definitely put a link to him, and I'm going to go check that one out personally.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for new resources.
And then I'm trying to think, I listen to co-working podcasts. I listen to, there is one that I love. Okay, this is so random. People are going to go, why? But communication is also huge to me, right? Because I teach on how to communicate, and I'm looking it up so I can tell it to you because this is so great. Think fast, talk smart. It's by a guy named Matt Abrahams. He is a Harvard professor great stuff about communications and connections with people, and a lot of science-based stuff because obviously he's a professor in what he does. Love this one. I just love it. I get so many nuggets from it. So it's really interesting. I think it's important that you fill your brain with a lot of different things, right? And so I'm listening to science-based stuff. I'm listening to mindset. I'm listening to some hardcore entrepreneurial stories and some personal stuff. And then, of course, my music is all over the place as well. Way all over the place.
Yeah, music. My musical taste range.
Craig Minor, yeah.
Crazy.
Yes.
Okay, so before we wrap up, last question. The desire I have in women watching and engaging here with Super Smart Women is if they leave with something that, how can I make a change? What would you leave with someone today?
It starts with one step. That's all it takes is one step of action. So when you look at the big giant thing and you go, I don't know where to begin, just find that first step. And then you'll take the next, and you'll take the next. It's that eating an elephant one bite at a time. I get in my way a lot, where I get like looking at all the things that need to be done, and how do I get to this next level? And then I got to distill it all out because this ADHD brain struggles with all of it. And then I'm like, okay. There's that clear path. There's the one.
Here's the step.
Right. And then, of course, it's, to go back to what we've already talked about, surround yourself with the right people. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable, right? Find someone. And if they're not the right someone, then have who else, right? Keep asking. Don't stop. I've got Instagram things saved crazy, right? I'm going to turn down the music. So I loved this. I want to share it. Your purpose is not just the thing you do. It's the thing that happens to others when you do what you do. It's how you make people feel and remember you by doing what you do. It's the experience that your energy leaves upon them. By mastering your gifts, you step into the realm of infinite possibilities. The greatest blessing you can give to humanity is owning your purpose and inspiring others to courageously own theirs.
So many great nuggets of wisdom. Tamara, thank you so much for doing this with me and for me and sharing with the audience. I hope that this impacts someone that's watching or listening as much as it always is a huge breath of fresh air for me to get to spend time with you.
And this is wonderful, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. It's a passion project. It's one of love. It's wanting to share not only my story, but the stories of other great women to help other young women out there. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for listening. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to the podcast, and we'll look to see you again next week. Thanks.